There will be rock and roll in tonight's experience. It's just going to be part of an instrumental trio presented in a different way. But if you like rock, you're going to like this. If I were them, I would get there early. Because you won't see this again. They're serious players. It's just not rock songs with lyrics. But three really, really great players, especially Laurie, who has a new album out. Laurie's very beautiful and charming, so you don't notice that she's hammering at you. She has one of the greatest violin sounds known to man, starting from 1977, that no one can replicate. And if all the people got to hear was that, that would be pretty good, but you're going to hear more.
But also the blend of these three styles is something that I've never heard before. We're pretty different in terms of where we come from and what we do, so it's a huge amount of fun to play this music.
There are different kinds of improvisation concerts or shows. Do you start from a frame, or how do you expect that strategy? I know there will be a lot of improvisation. Is it totally improvised? Are you starting from, is there a starting point?
100% improvised, and we're just trying to tune into the energies of each other and see where it goes. That's the only way you could do this. This is not a set piece. It never will be. It never could be. It's not in any known key. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I think it's what makes it really exhilarating and also really terrifying. I've never done a show where I walked out and had no idea, really no idea, what the first sound would be or where it was going to go. And
That's what we have said.
we have sound check, yeah, but we don't really know what we're building until we just start building something. And I always feel it's kind of like kind of a boat that then you can turn it different ways and look at it, and it's fascinating. I never played music like this before, so but there's something really architectural about it, you know, and very sort of narrative as well.
So architectural and narrative.
A walk through a big, strange building.
Why not?
So if there's just going to be three of you, there'll be no rhythm section? Does that mean that it'll
What
be
do you
sort of
mean,
free
no
flowing?
rhythm section? We're the rhythm section. If you mean there's just us three, right? There's no drummer unless it's Laurie doing something.
I work with a lot of electronic rhythms and patterns, so they might float through or not. I don't know.
Your new album is out. Will that be a jumping off point for some of the improvisation? Can we expect that?
Well, a lot of the filters that I designed for the violin for that record are part of my sort of setup, which is getting smaller and smaller, and more powerful. So it's a series of soft synths and homemade pedals and filters that turn the violin into a kind of a rhythmic instrument in some cases. So what I really want to do as a violinist, you kind of have your head right next to this instrument, and you hear a lot of things that the audience would never hear. You hear, you hear this grinding, you hear overtones, you hear harmonics. And my goal as a player is to pull those sounds, those gritty, crunchy things up off the noise floor and bring them into audible range. So, because I'm not really interested in electronics as here's this perfect sound from my box into your box. I like music that's pumped through some real air and played by real people. So there's a lot of grinding and real sounds in this so-called electronic rig that I have. So it's gritty. So I think that's one of the reasons that it can work in a world like Lou's and work in a world like John's, that are really, really super vivid, instruments played by real people, not synths that are but they're you can hear a real person playing these things. So that's an exciting thing for me. Yeah.
On one of the tracks on your new album, we hear a real dog playing piano. It was credited with playing piano. I want to know about the.
Are you talking about Homeland?
Yeah.
Our dog's debut as a pianist.
I would like to say something about Lola Bell, who's working on her. She's a rat terrier, and she's playing a pretty cool thing with Zorn in a song called Bodies in Motion on my record Homeland. She's just finishing her Christmas album now, so watch out for that. It's going to be around.
I've been making little incremental gains in the basic idea of that particular sound, which I've been trying to do for a real long time. And I won't bore you with what gets it there, but it's an ongoing project to make it. The basic idea is really simple. It's that I wanted to figure out how I could get a very loud sound soft so I didn't go deaf listening to it, but how could it have that power? So, and then it was also, I didn't want it to be atonal. I just wanted it to be monumental and very thick and huge. And that's what I've been trying to do with this particular sound. Still, every time there's some little advance in whatever it is, tuning pegs, I'm there.
Hi. Sorry. My question's for Reed. When you're creating an album, what is your songwriting process, and what usually comes first, the music or the lyrics?
I don't write that way. I have no idea, truly. I tried to understand at the beginning and I realized I don't, so I don't actually have anything to say about that.
Ms. Anderson, Bernie Perouse from the Gazette. One of the more striking songs on Homeland that I wanted to ask you about is Only an Expert, and incidentally, kudos to Mr. Reed for the incredible guitar work on that particular track. But it's a really interesting view of sort of the landscape in America right now, and it seems open-ended, like you could still be piling stuff on, like the oil spill and things like that. Does that song continue to evolve, let's say, in a live setting?
Yeah, that was always different. Every night I would play it. So just the way it landed on the record was what was happening that time. And yeah, but it came out of like frustration with living in a culture that was all about everything will be taken care of for you, so that, and also that there's something wrong with you. The premise of the Oprah Winfrey show, for example, it's like you've got a problem that only experts can really take care of. There's nothing wrong with you. You're human. You're trying to live a life. It's hard. It's not that easy, But it's anyway. Maybe because there's so much specialization, everyone has their tiny little territory. They have to become an expert in that territory, something like that. But this infantilization really bothers me a lot. Just that you have to ask somebody for something. Ask your doctor whether this would be the correct medication. Ask yourself, how do you feel? So anyway, that's the frustration, and it's of course instantly updatable. And as a writer, I am often trying to be a good journalist, in the sense that I'm not trying to tell a story that has an easy punchline or an easy narrative arc, but a messier one. The way our lives are much messier. And I find that when you tell a story like that has the complexity in it, something that's wrong with it, then people understand what you're talking about, But they, of course, it does have a kind of easy punchline in it, that it has a chorus of only an expert can deal with the problem. So, but that's more of on the jingle level of just repeating a thing. So,
Quick follow-up. The material on the album predates the Obama presidency, and I was curious, and I'd like to address this to both of you. Do you feel the presidency has alleviated things or lived up to its promise?
He's our guy. But I think we had a theory about this. Even our guy, you know, so he gets in, and whoever it is standing over there says, okay, come here for a minute. And he brings him into a room. And when he comes back out, he's changed. They showed him something so terrible that even Obama, okay. But
Hair is a little
but-
grayer. It's,
it's like
this kind of
aged
shaken look.
15
Oh.
years. They
Why don't they
brought
tell him
him.
in
This
that
is
little-
what's really going on. On the other hand, he canned that general in about 5 minutes. Our guy did that. Can he keep it going? I don't know. The forces of evil and corruption are so deep, so all-pervasive through absolutely everything. No one's ever said Obama's not honest. He's smart, he's honest. How much experience does he have dealing with these guys? Who's his Cheney? Someone really evil, you know, to send out in the middle of the night and kill, you know, like liberals.
Well, also, it's an era of, that we've never really seen anything like this before, where there aren't really alternatives, you know. And I'm just thinking of a book that I just read called Capitalist Reality, and the premise of this book is, or the idea is, that it's easier for people to imagine the end of the world than it is for them to imagine the end of capitalism. To me, that's truly frightening. There is no other way to do things now. It's disappeared. So how does this change the whole nature of all of the arguments, all of the ways we do things and think about them? It's a brand new thing that we're now having to invent as we do it. So it's a...
Fearful of the concert?
Better not go.
There's only one answer to that. So what's the question?
The attitude of improvisation as a fearlessness aspect to it. You just go and do it.
It does?
And since we in the audience, many of us do have fears that wouldn't do that. Do you feel maybe it helps us to?
You're not supposed to do that. You're not the player.
But I think people who, an audience that hears people fumbling and looking for things,
Whoops.
I think it's, when I've been in an audience in that situation, I'm like, what are they doing? They don't know what they're doing, actually. And I find that a very tender moment myself, because, you know, who knows what they're doing? And the people who know what they're doing, I kind of feel sorry for them. Look at our program, and they're just going to do that stuff and just accomplish it. And they achieve exactly what they expected and nothing about what they didn't expect. So for me, the thrill of doing this is not just, it's not about so much fearlessness as just vulnerability as well. So it's not about charging in, I know how to do this. We don't. We're looking, and I every time I'm...
We don't?
And I don't. Yes, let me say that for myself. I don't know what I'm doing. And I enjoy that feeling. And when you play a note and somebody else goes, oh yeah, Bana, you know, then it becomes this conversation that hasn't taken place before. It's not hello, how are you, have a nice day. It's not the social glue. It's really something that is kind of shocking. And so that's what I look forward to in playing tonight, to have something that isn't just a, another thing that you've said a million times before.
I guess my question was kind of in that regard. You were talking, Ms. Anderson, about the jingle way of communicating that's very reductive. And Mr. Reed, you were talking about still it being rock and roll, but with tapping into different energies. When or did you lose complete interest in traditional rock and roll?
When did what?
When or did you lose complete interest into the traditional form of rock and roll?
Lose.
I don't know, I'm asking.
Complete interest? Well, from my point of view, I think you have to be really careful. You don't turn into Las Vegas or that kind of a show or song. And you go to pretty big lengths, which is actually easy. You just don't take those things. Just stay away from that. So there's a reality to it. And I'm very, very aware of all that. And the opportunity to make some early money and be turned into a shoe brand is really always sitting over there laughing at you, you know. As young people come up playing their songs and this, and your songs and your audience, they say, well, why don't you do a commercial with that for $2 million for the Super Bowl and you can appear in the middle in Spangles? Well, because I never got into this to do that. I'm a rock and roll person through and through. I don't do that. I never will do that. And I'll go out on my shield that way, but I'll have some company with some other players who don't do that.
Well, thank you. That was the last question. I want to thank you very much on behalf of the Montreal International Jazz Festival, and I want to thank you for being here. You have a great day, and we're looking forward to this concert tonight.
A fearless night of non-rock.